There's a guy that used to take us on a trip on the. He had gone, the administrator.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole Board meeting of June 3rd, 2025. Before we begin our meeting tonight, I would just like to acknowledge the recent events in our Blue Water District School Board, schools, and communities. The heartbreaking loss of 4 students and a staff member from Walkerton District Community Schools has deeply impacted not only the school, but communities near and far. This past week, we have seen an overwhelming outpouring of love, compassion, and support for families who lost loved ones and the entire Walkerton District school community. On behalf of trustees, I share our deepest thanks to everyone who has reached out with their kind words, heartfelt actions to support Walkerton and other affected schools. Gratitude is also extended to our school-based and central staff who have been truly extraordinary in responding to and caring for the needs of students, colleagues, and families. Our hearts and thoughts remain with the students and staff of Walkerton District Community School during this time of profound grief and sorrow. And I hope you'll also make space in your hearts for other school communities and within our board that are all currently experiencing losses. We acknowledge tonight and every night that we are meeting on the traditional land of Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which is represented by the communities of Saugeen First Nation and Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation. We also think of the Métis Nation of Ontario, whose history and people are well represented in great counties. We have received regrets this evening from Trustee Ritchie. And so we are to the approval of the agenda. Is there any new business to add to the agenda this evening? Trustee Johnston?
Yes. I'd like to have a bit of a discussion because with the new Ontario Regulatory Registry has to do with supporting Children and Students Act 2025 is just trying to gain some input in things that you think are important. Whether or not our board actually does this mission, but I can tell you that OSPA is, and that the chair of the education program work group will be looking for information from trustees to get a sense of our region or input initially.
So anytime we're adding an item to the agenda, we need to have approval from the trustees. So we'll need a majority that are interested in that to be added. So I'll vote. Any people interested in having that agenda item added this evening? Okay, and that's carried. Thank you. All over. Jen.
Throw that in there.
That's good. Is there anything else? I don't see anything. The agenda for the Committee of the Whole Board meeting of June 3rd be approved as amended. Could I have a number, please? Just give me a phone. And all in favor? That's good. I'm still looking up at the screen. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest on any of our items this evening? None. There are no delegations this evening. There are no field trips. So we are to committee reports, and the first is the Policy Standing Committee from May the 20th. I would like to invite the Policy Standing Committee Chair, Trustee Dukes, to speak to the report. Would you like me to put the recommendations on the floor, or would you want to put them on the floor?
You put them on the floor there.
Okay.
Sure. And go first. I apologize. I was expecting there to be more things before I reported, but that's okay. So the Policy Standing Committee met on Tuesday, May 20th, and we, from that, there are 4 policies that we are recommending go to the board for approval. There were a lot of it had to do with the ministry, changes to proceed, that ministry changes and then there need to be changes to procedural bylaws and some other things. And then, there were 4 policies that were sending for system review, so that's, the conflict of interest policy, indemnification of board employees and trustees, third-party protocol, and police record checks. Those are being sent for cyclical review. And we, are recommending that, the office support schools policy be rescinded as what is in it is covered elsewhere. So then, Chair Thompson will put the recommendations of the board, which are the policies that the committee is recommending, be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. So there are 4 policies that are up for approval tonight. So I'll be looking for a mover, that the Blue Water District School Board consider approving the Blue Water District School Board procedural bylaws as revised for system use effective September 1st, 2025. Trustee Roots. Is there any discussion? None, all in favor? That's carried. Secondly, that Blue Water District School Board consider approving board policy VP 1402-D, electronic meetings, board and committee as revised for system use. Have a mover, please. Any discussion? None, all in favor? That Blue Water District School Board consider approving board policy VP 1110-D trustee vacancy as revised for system use. Trustee Atkinson. Discussion? None, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. And that Blue Water District School Board to consider rescinding board policy BP 7330-D office support schools. Mover, please. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next is our Parent Involvement Committee, and I'd like to invite Trustee Atkinson to speak to the report.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. On May the 12th, the Parent Involvement Committee met via Teams. We had not quite as many as we usually do, and we did not just the same. A presentation on the student achievement plan was provided by Superintendent Lowers. A school involvement plan for 2024-2025 presentation was also provided by Superintendent Wendy Lowers. We also thanked Leanne Scott, who has been the co-chair for many years, I understand, and her children will be going on to a different board, I believe, acclimation because of geographic. So we look forward to Jonathan continuing next September. I've had the privilege to go to a lot of PIC functions from musicals to soirees to math nights, literacy nights. But last Wednesday, I had the privilege to be in Normandy again, and they had their 3rd annual carnival. Now, my Normandy family is quite a bunch of parents, and they get things done. So this was their 3rd carnival, and first year, if you remember, I got a pie in the face. Last year, I kissed the ground. This year, I escaped the water bucket challenge, but I got drenched barbecuing. I was wet in places I shouldn't have been wet. But anyway, the parents usually don't fundraise for their playground. Last year we fundraised for their nutrition program. This year it was to go to nutrition, but the parents in Normandy decided that the $2,500 that they raised would go to the students at Walkerton District for whether it was a box of coffee or a box of donuts or a trip to Dairy Queen. So they are donating their funds from the Commonwealth, $2,500 to you know, WD, don't forgive me for being emotional, I just went hard in my sleeve. So, and I went through Andy to make sure it was okay to do that, and he did it, the way he suggested, so. It is a pretty wonderful committee to be on, and if you ever get the opportunity, I truly suggest the joins.
Let's make it hard to follow. Your recommendations. Are there any new notice of motion this evening? You don't?
Thank you, thank you. So whereas good governance practices are important for the Blue Water District School Board, be it resolved that all public, and this is where there's strikeout. So we had a previous motion. I should back up here. We had a previous motion that we had done last year and had to do with recordings of our board meeting and also our committee of the whole meeting. But because the name has changed, we're now have to make this change. So it's just, so I'm gonna go back to the beginning, so then you'll understand what the strikeout is. Okay, so whereas good governance practices are important for the Blue Water District School Board, be it resolved that all public, and this is the strikeout, committee of the whole board replaced with governance standing committee meetings and regular meetings of the board be recorded and posted on the website for public viewing, and that the strikeout committee of the whole board replaced with governance standing committee in camera meetings be recorded and kept privately. And that's a notice of motion.
Thank you. And for trustee Peters, the notice of motion comes this meeting. We'll discuss it at the next meeting, at a board meeting. So it just is received now, and then we'll discuss at the next meeting. Our reports for information. So I would like to invite Superintendent of Education Days to speak to this report and its intermediate one-to-one device pilot program.
Thank you, through the chair. I don't normally get to raise this. I'm so happy when I get to raise this. So I'm going to introduce to you in just a second, Hillary Butler. She is our intermediate senior technics coach. And she's been helping us over the last few years, supporting the implementation of the one-to-one devices in grades 9 to 12. Now, earlier this year, we had our teacher laptops come in and they were being refurbished. So it created a situation for us where we had a number of them that were kept in very good condition. So they were able to be refurbished at almost no cost to us. And we had, I don't want to say access devices, but we had devices that we were then able to use for a pilot project to put in the hands of our intermediate students. So that's what Hillary is going to describe to you. The small amount of money that was spent through my budget, I did kick in a little money so that we had charging cards in each of those 20 classrooms so that they could safely store the devices and then charge them so that they'd be ready. Hillary's going to share with you some wonderful things that have happened, and we'd be happy to share that with you. And we also have some videos that are going to be showing as well. So. There, it's just loading.
Start going. So the pilot aims to enhance student engagement, digital literacy, and outcomes through equitable access to individual laptops for classroom use. To gain admission to the pilot, teachers had to submit an application. They were invited to submit via numbered memo. In their application, they needed to outline their instructional goals and strategies for implementing the devices in their classroom, as well as how they intended to use the devices to support inquiry, collaboration, universal design for learning, and the SAMR model. Over 50 teachers applied to the pilot based on the number of application received, the number of devices available, application quality, we were able to admit 20 teachers to the pilot. These, you can just. The number of participating classes were divided equally amongst the 3 areas of schools. If and when this loads, you'll see each little laptop icon indicates a school that has been added into this pilot program. The reason we had the application process was to also ensure that the teachers were committed to tech use in their classrooms so that they were champions of technology in their school already most of the time, which ensured that the devices were going to kind of hit the ground running once they were admitted. Here, and then we'll just.
So it's not in presentation, but that's fine.
Yeah.
So,
That's okay. Maybe if it's just. So sorry. This. I always think it's so funny when like the technology.
Yeah.
Can't get it.
Yeah.
It's so.
Alright, so,
Easier to get feedback from the teacher simply since it's online. It's just a quick share button or anything, and you can get immediate feedback. As in our We Will Write activity, the teacher immediately sees it and she can give you feedback almost instantaneously. And another project where it helped was a history project we did. As we were presenting, she was marking us. So before you even sat down from presenting in front of the class, you already had your grade and your feedback.
so I really wanted to highlight this evening's student voice and how much the students are engaging more with their learning through access to these devices. So you'll also see on the slide some quotes from students that I've pulled throughout my classroom visits. So in this, I did have students say that the laptop has helped me do better at school by showing learning in different ways, being able to complete assignments on time and working being easier. So the preliminary data from the pilot shows that participating teachers and students indicate positive impacts on student achievement with improved quality of submitted assignments and an overall increase in the number of assignments submitted. This students note that feedback allows them to feel like they have a dialogue with their teachers surrounding feedback now. Teachers showcase that they're allowed more and frequent feedback, so there's a deeper experience in the learning process for the students. Teachers were supported in the pilot through myself with individual coaching, classroom visits, but they were also welcome to participate in our assessment inquiry, which focuses on using technology and assessment practices. Many of our participating teachers were graduates of that inquiry, but those who had not participated prior were invited to participate recently, and all really highlighted on the learning there. For example, a teacher remarked that these tools that we've learned in the inquiry have improved both the quality and relevance of my feedback for students. I'm able to reach out to them during the work more consistently and tailor feedback more so that they can know more about their work and where to improve. And the technology helps with that too, because there's live feedback happening because teachers can watch students complete, for example, a Word document and then immediately comment on the document as they're working and have that continuous feedback cycle. Which also there's more opportunities for students to present their learning in different formats, which increases the ability to triangulate assessment data, which is a really helpful way to ensure that the assessment is clear and concise for each student. Next video.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like I was at the beginning of this year, I was so nervous because like I don't know, I feel like Madame Dwyer, like our teacher, she has a different teaching style than everyone else, but I much prefer it over the other teachers. And like using these computers really helps me be like, oh yeah, I'm stepping up the chain and I'm getting closer and closer to where I need to be for high school. Instead of having to like be behind and being like, oh my gosh, my head's gonna fall off, I'm so behind.
Yeah, I think that having the computers was the right thing to do for going into high school because it's going to make going into high school and using the computers all the time a lot easier.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
I think that my typing has actually gotten better because
Yeah.
usually I just like write everything by hand and now I can actually spell words.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, that typing, aspect really helps with like spelling because it corrects you and then you're like, oh, okay, now I can know that for next time. And then also organization and like responsibility.
So the students obviously had a lot to say about their experience. I just wanted to mention, I interviewed 6 students so far on video, and each of the interviews were over 12 minutes in length because they wanted to talk so much. So we had to cut it down to short snippets, but you can really see, especially our grade 8 students, they feel so much more prepared for secondary school. Like this one student here mentions that she was more prepared, she knows how to stay on top of things, she's using these digital tools to support her. Thanks. On this slide here, we see an example of some student work that's been completed with the laptops. And this is something that would not be available to students without the consistent access to technology. So here, students from Carden have used the math program Polypad to create geometric art. So it's an extension of the geometry transformations they were working on to create a piece of art. So I'm not a big math person, but I'm told there's equations involved in having a piece this year. Students also use programs like Knowledge Hook. Wheel Write was another one that was great, which is an AI-powered writing tool. So students are given a prompt that they need to then come up with a story. The class can critique it. They vote on who gets the best one. They're split randomly into teams. Keith can confirm when you see it in action that students are groaning when the timer goes up when we're writing. We also saw a lot of use of the program Quizzes, which is a gamified learning tool that's curriculum aligned and covers all types of cross-curricular subjects. And then we also saw a lot of use of our GIS for their story map software. So some students created different maps for geography or other projects, which is great. Next slide. And so here again, I'm going to highlight the students were so excited to have access to these tools. I heard over and over again, we want to be more prepared for secondary school. I want to do better. I want to be invested in my learning. This helps me do that. Here, the chart is an example of other student work that they had a research project on the Canadian Mental Health Association and created an academic style research poster to document what their findings were. That was created using Canva. Students also gained a lot of exposure to the entire Microsoft suite, so now they're even more prepared. They're into these tech routines. They come in, they check their email every morning, they're communicating more electronically. So that kind of relates to improved learning skills as well, the responsibility and initiative. Next slide. Our next steps are to collect the final quantitative and qualitative data through more classroom visits, and students and teachers are completing a survey. But I really also wanted to take a moment to highlight the engagement students are having with school. I attended a AI conference earlier this year where we had a presentation from the University of Waterloo's Academic Integrity Department. And they talked about how if students switch their mindset from education is happening to me to I am happening to my education, their engagement and their learning increases. And that's exactly what we've seen with the introduction of these digital tools. Students are taking ownership of their learning, they're active in it, they're participating more. A teacher reported a student with over 40 absences prior to the pilot. It's only the 7 days since the pilot started. And both comments from the teacher and that student have indicated a lot of that student's access to the tech, because learning is more exciting for them. So overall, a good success, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Because I've been in a lot of schools to see the evidence of this. So one, George and Bay. I met George and Bay, and the teacher really wanted, she knew it, said, you've got to come up, you've got to stay in class. So I went out, they started the Wheel Write, and I have never heard grade 8 boys, especially, groaning because the buzzer goes and they have to stop adding to their creative writing. They're like, I had so many good ideas I wanted to add to that. 30 kids fully engaged in a creative writing task, and they did it they did 3 rounds, and they get in random groups, and then what they do is they write a passage, and then they get to vote in their group on who had the best, and they don't know who wrote it. They have no idea. They just see a passage and they're like, oh, I really like that. Good descriptive word there. Oh, I really like this part. So then they put the best ones together. They come up with the best creative writing passage, and then everyone votes on who has the best one. They get points. I've never seen students this engaged in creative writing. It had to be sold. And then today I'm in Matthew Uma's class in Paisley, and he's got a grade 7 and 8 class, and it's not easy having a split class, about 22 students in there. I said, class looks pretty full, like for Paisley, that's a full class. He said, yeah, but everyone here. He's like, it's happening all the time, Keith. I have everyone here. He's like, that student over there, so many absences. I think he's only been absent like twice in the last few months. Very engaged, and the students were doing, it was a game, multiplying and simplifying fractions. And they were all engaged, they're all like actively like, and then a co-op student was running around helping students because they had questions, but like, you said, why this one, what are you doing? And they're getting points and their cars are racing around the screen, the big screen, based on how well they perform. But they were excited to multiply and simplify fractions. And as a math teacher, I had a little tear in my eye. So great to see the students and the staff are really embracing the technology and using it effectively. So we're really happy to see that.
You may have, just before I go to questions, you may have already answered this, but what percentage of our students were able to have access to this?
So 20 classrooms, so across grade 7 and 8, we probably have about maybe 2,200 grade 7 and 8 students. So 20 classrooms, we're probably looking at about 450 devices. So you're looking at maybe 22%. That's my rough math off the top of my head. I said I was a math teacher, so hopefully that's close.
Trustees have questions or comments. Trustee Lu.
Thank you so much for doing this and sharing it. So as a parent of a almost completed grade 8 student, I'm just went through intermediate. And I see how much work this is, a student not in this pilot program, how much work needs to be done digitally anyways. And so this is such an important equity piece. So as soon as you started making comments about students reducing their absences because of this program, and while I'm sure part of it is engagement and change learning, part of it is, I can promise you, students are embarrassed they don't have a device at home to finish their work. Because I see how much they're doing on camera, they're doing in the office suite, which is all fantastic until you don't have a device at home. So this is so wonderful to see and hear about and can we just clarify, this is being expanded next year? Is that correct?
So right now, as it stands, we're continuing the pilot project with the devices we have, and if we can enhance with any more refurbished devices, we will. So we do always have some that come in. So we'll expand as we can, but we're going to keep an eye on it. Unfortunately, I don't think the budget right now allows us to move beyond the pilot phase. But I think it is important for us to always be considering and be in a position, so if we have the opportunity to act on something like this, then we can.
Student trustee Powell.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I just wanted to say how it really is great that you guys are not only balancing that kind of engagement aspect with the different games that they're playing, but also teaching them very practical skills, like coming in and checking their email. That's a habit that I still don't even have, and I'm in grade 12. So being on that in grade 7 is amazing to hear. And I think definitely if I had something like this when I was in grade 7, it would have completely helped me with the transition to high school, because everything is done online and everything is through Office and things like that. So the fact that you guys are putting a great spin on it with the games and such is really awesome to hear, and I'm glad the students are liking it.
Steve Peters.
My question is about the laptops themselves. Are they taken home? Are they to be used at home? And if so, were there any issues with broadband and speed and access to the internet itself?
Thank you. So for the purpose of the pilot, the devices were to stay in classroom only, so they weren't sent home. That's just that age level. We thought that having to bring a device back and forth, we'll see how the responsibility is and then go from there, but they stayed in classroom. Yeah.
Trustee Atkins.
I'm excited that students are excited about fractions and creative writing, but the absenteeism caught my ear. I would be very curious to see how that follows through in their grade 9 year when they do have that one-on-one device, if that keeps up, because we do hear at CIAC quite often about attendance counselors overload. But I think it's optimistic, very optimistic, and thanks for sharing this presentation. But I also wonder, we do have students with technology for different reasons. So have you seen that takes the stigma off that student in the classroom working with the other computers in the classroom? If that makes sense?
Yeah, we've definitely seen that. It's been a common remark from participating teachers. And even the remarking, we think about universal design. So a thing that's good for one is good for many. And so students that may be documented don't need the text to voice tech are using it anyway because they like it better, they find it easier. And that's also contributing to removal of stigma for these assistive technologies as well. So lots more increased use there too.
I'm curious, do you have any sense, do we as the board have any sense of what percentage of students in grade 7 and 8 have computers at home, or specifically their own computer, so that they're already presumably quite computer literate?
I don't have numbers right now. As part of the student survey for the participating students, 2 of the questions we asked were, do you have internet at home and do you have access to technology at home? So we can have that by the end of this year.
And what were the answers?
We don't have them back yet. The survey's still open.
Just to build on that, your survey of technology at home, are you differentiating access to a computer versus a mobile device? Because it does make a difference for schoolwork, unfortunately.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
So with the survey that you just mentioned, did you differentiate for home technology between access to a computer and access to mobile devices? Because the functionality for schoolwork can be different between us.
So I believe, I don't know the exact wording escaped me, but it says like to be able to complete schoolwork at home. Yeah.
And when this continues as a pilot project, will it be rotating to different schools? It seems there's an opportunity to do some capacity building with staff members in terms of their knowledge of how these programs can work with students.
Thank you for the question through the chair. So what we're doing is we're bringing all computers back. We're asking teachers again to reapply if they'd like to participate. They did have to tell us how they were going to be using the devices, what their plan, what their tech plan was. And there were some students or some teachers who did not get devices simply because they didn't lay out for us that they were using it for the pedagogical reasons that we need to see that are good practice. So early on, Hillary talked about the standard model. So we talked about substitution and augmentation, and those are really areas. So there's 4 levels to the standard model, and the first 2 are really kind of substitution is like me saying, use this computer to write your essay. So instead of writing an essay on paper, you simply type it in the computer. All we're doing is substituting one mode for another, paper to computer. Augmentation might be a little different. That might be you creating a PowerPoint, which sounds great. And I know some people look at it and say, look what I've done. My students are creating PowerPoints. This is wonderful. They're ready for the global economy. Not really. I mean, you could create a presentation on paper and like hold it up and show it to people. So it's not really like we've augmented it a little bit. And then we get to modification and redefinition. And those are areas where really you're creating something that's much more dynamic and can only be accomplished with technology. So something like a redefinition would be creating an online project that then seeks out and gets input from other participants around the world. And it uses that to build on. So there's no way that could have been done without technology and without the internet. So we want students to be creating and working towards modification and redefinition. Not at all times, not for every project and every day, but ultimately that's what we want to see for some of your summative, bigger tasks in the classroom.
I can just do a follow-up then. Is there an opportunity for our teachers who could also benefit from learning more about what the opportunities are to see the results of this kind of a project, to understand what the opportunities are, what the benefits from the students, so that they may be able to apply and get those?
Yeah, so we have a portal for teachers called Learn BW, and we'll share findings on that for teachers to access. And then when we ask for reapplications to the pilot next year, we'll be sent through numbered memo again, so all teachers who are teaching grade 7 and 8 will have access there. And then I just wanted to highlight my assessment inquiry that I run. The majority of the participants this past session were also in the pilot, and a big portion of that inquiry is sharing tech tools and resources that you've developed. So every time they come, we meet 3 times. About a quarter of the day is just sharing what you've done and showcasing that and talking about best practices. So that's a great way for teachers to learn as well.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? I see none. It sounds like an excellent project. I just wish all our kids had access to it. Thank you so much. The next is step in after school skills development. And I'd like to invite Superintendent Henry to speak to this report.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us tonight. So I'd like to invite up Learning Services Administrator Colleen McGuire and Evan Colley from Student Support. We're here to share some information with you this evening on the Step In program. So Colleen is the administrator that oversees the program along with myself, and Deb is the master client behind it all. So she's going to be able to share the work with you. Thank you. I'm happy to welcome Deborah Colley. Deb is part of our Be Safe team. And so she has been coordinating this program for a number of years. And we always have some really tremendous feedback from our families. So I'm happy to have her here tonight to share. Thank you so much, Colleen. You can see that.
Great. So thank you for the introduction. As Colleen said, I'm Deb Colley. I'm the team coordinator for our Step In After School Summer Skill Development Partnership Program. So when our proposal was first approved by the ministry, it was meant to be a social skill building program for only autistic students. And after the first year, we were really thankful that the ministry expanded our guidelines, that now we are able to offer this program to any student with special education needs. The main focus of the program needs to continue to be social skill building, skill rehearsal, life skills, and regulation development. Our specific program has turned into what we refer to as Step In. So this is our after school and summer skill development partnership program. This obviously remains a social skill building partnership program. This is our 4th year offering community-based programs to our special education students. To date, we have completed 289 spaces that have been provided and supported for our students, which is incredible. We have developed 10 partnerships within various communities that I will outline for you that are now accessible and safe for our students to access. Our partnership activities include horseback riding, pottery painting, baking, horsemanship skills, science, STEM, cooking, and outdoor learning and online coding. So we know that a lot of our students need high interest motivators in order to engage in learning. We know that ourselves are higher engaged in learning when we are doing things that we are motivated by. So that's why we have found some special interest topics, really sort of coined by Paula Kluth. She was the one that really pushes using special interests with our learners to engage. And when we are regulated, we just learn better. So our partnership goals include integration with individual skill development, as well as focus on individual profiles. As part of the program, I have access to school goals and family goals for all of the students included, with consent, obviously, from families. So I'm able to review these and embed them within the programs that our students are participating in. It's also to promote inclusion within our community programs themselves. We're providing in-person learning opportunities in smaller groups. We are increasing confidence. This is confidence not only with our students, that they can access some of these community organizations or businesses or activities or camps, but they just feel that this is something obviously that they are capable of doing and now have access to. It's also increasing the confidence of our families. So we'll go through a few of the quotes in a bit about what our families are saying, but it's really, our families are dropping off their students or dropping off their children, just like all of the other parents, and we are able to welcome them with ease and comfort. We're also increasing confidence within our community partnerships. So they now feel stronger and more well-trained to be able to open their doors and open their programs to more of the students that are within their own communities. We are building and rehearsing social skills. Obviously, the main goal is that we are increasing awareness, advocacy, and acceptance for our students. And we are building compatible connections. This has been one of the most moving outcomes that we've had. We've watched students that have connected with each other. We've watched families that have connected with each other. We've watched families that have connected with partnerships. And it's become incredible. A lot of our students have friends for the very first time that they would have never met, but are meeting each other through a love of pottery or through a love of baking. We have a best friend from Chesley. There's another one in Wyerton, and there's another one in Holstein. They would have never met each other, but they are their very first friends, had their very first sleepover. They went to the reptile show on the weekend together, and it's just one of many success stories that we're seeing. So the way that the partnership works currently is that I do the seeking out of partnerships. So I find in various communities, organizations or businesses that are providing already established programs or potentially establishing programs with them that I think would be successful for our students. I reserve the spaces and our program pays for all the fees for the registration. The program information is approved here through system, and that information goes out to school teams through a numbered memo and as well to families that have expressed an interest previously or previously been a part of our program. There is now a lottery process that is completed because we have had such an influx of families that have been interested in a variety of programs. So we can talk a little bit about what the summer registration looks like, but we do complete a lottery process. There is staff training and profile sharing. It's one of the strengths of the program. So with parental consent, I visit each of the partnerships that our students are participating in and provide their staff with training and individual profile sharing for specific strategies that we feel would be successful for those students. I help them set up their environment. I help them outline accommodations and strategies and make sure that staff feel confident when our students are starting. For our after-school sessions, I co-facilitate all of the groups. And for the summer program, I attend the first or second day of the student going to camp, usually one additional day of the student being at camp because I'm running multiple camps every week. I unfortunately can't be at every camp every day, but I try. And so I'm also available for consultation. There is an open consent form that is signed. So if families would like to speak to me about the camp, if they have questions and they're not sure how to phrase their questions or how to get support, they can reach right out to me. The camps can reach out to me if they feel like they could use some additional support. One of the camps has a guest speaker that comes once per week. So they usually ask that I come on that day just to make sure that I'm there to provide any additional support so that our students are able to take part in everything that the camp is doing that week. And of course, we're collecting lots of photos. We do have some to show, and some data and feedback from families and from partnerships and from our students. They love to share their opinions. So this map will look familiar. This is our Blue Water map. So some of the partnerships or all of the partnerships that we have currently, we have Grey Roots Museum is one of our summer partnerships and now becoming one of our after school partnerships as well. And they're in Owen Sound. Hope Haven is in Markdale. Roots to Rise is a new partnership in Campbell. France is out in Port Elgin. Red Hen is our newest partnership located in Priceville. Daisy's Playhouse is in Owen Sound. Larchwood is an occupational therapy camp that's run out of Markdale. The YMCA in Owen Sound. LearnStyle is an online coding company that we partnered with. And Atlas for schools with the Owen Sound location, the Kincardine location, and next year, the Wyerton location at the Victoria Center. Everybody loves data. I'm a behaviorist. I love data. So this is what we see so far with the data and with our growth. So currently between 75 and 80% of families that apply to the program receive a space at some point throughout the school year. Any of our students that are requiring a higher level of support or may benefit from a shorter program than what we're running, we have been able to offer them a day trip or a visit or tour to the partnerships to gain some exposure and still allow them the opportunity to explore the environments. As you can see, we have some incredible data. It might be a bit difficult to read, but in terms of our families, when we started the program, we had 41 families accessing the program, and we're now up to 179 families access the program this year. That's a total of 391 Blue Water families with special education children have now accessed the program, which is incredible. In terms of confirmed spaces, we had 43 spaces that we were offering in our first year, and we've now grown to 131 confirmed spaces for this year, including our summer program, which will start in July. So there's always some great photos to show. I know Tracy loves when we show the photos. So this is from our after school program that that happens in both the fall and the spring. This is from Daisy's Playhouse. This is one of our partnerships that has probably seen the most growth. This is a family-run business in Owen Sound. They're now, because of our partnership and because of that confidence building, they're now offering groups to Big Brother, Big Sisters, to Reach, and to CMHA, which is incredible. And this is clearly one of our student favorites. The goal of this program is that we first get the students to talk to me, which is not as challenging maybe as it seems. We then get them to start talking to each other, which again isn't all that challenging. We fade me usually at the request of the students that are in my program, that it's time for me to step away. And then what we're seeing is that some of our students who have been a part of the program for multiple years have now become leaders for the new students that are joining us. It's run as sort of an advocacy awareness group, so the students in the group are fully aware of their diagnosis and love to talk about it with others who are similar. The quote there is from a parent. So she said the caring and supportive manner felt by both parents and staff. The goals of learning about yourself and making connections with others were certainly met. My daughter was able to carry over several of the themes in the week. After each session, she told us she was glad to finally meet some kids just like me. The next is our newest program. So this is Red Hen. This is up in Priceville. I don't know if anyone has heard of this, but it is, yeah. Lauren is amazing. It is the cutest little bakery place and they offer like incredible classes. So happy to pass on her information. This was something I happened to trip over her contact information. I don't think she necessarily had this as one of her focuses, but she's doing incredible. And we have 8 students that have just completed learning how to make pretzels, and donuts and bagels. And it's been super incredible. The kids had a great time. Again, Lauren said it's been really nice to be able to provide a space that allows kids to learn new skills in a comfortable environment. I'm so glad to have been brought on by this program. And a parent said, thank you so much. Joey came back so happy. What you are doing is making a difference. And this student was somebody who had never been able to access community programs because the parents just didn't feel comfortable and confident that he could access programs in another environment without her support and without her supervision. Parents will probably be familiar to some. So this is a half-day program. It's incredible. They run an incredible summer camp and yeah, we're just happy to be with them. We started off little with them. The staff really wanted some time to build their own confidence and their own skill sets, but they are doing awesome and we have seen really, really great outcomes. The little boy on the right is completely non-speaking autistic student. And mom for the very first time heard him say horse, which is his very first word. And he is up and at him every morning to get to prance. And we are really happy and really proud to provide him with this opportunity. The next is summer camp. This is Grey Roots Museum. This is one of our very first partnerships. They have certainly come leaps and bounds as well. Every year they level up what they want to do with us. They have rearranged their staffing. They've leveled up their environment. They've changed their activities. They've changed what their free time looks like. They've even changed what their information seeking process looks like from families when they're welcoming other students to their programs, which is incredible that they are just, instead of asking questions like, can your child talk, or is your child toilet trained, that they've really expanded what their criteria is, knowing that they can certainly support these students and do an incredible job. Laura said your students are never a concern. Our staff feel well trained and ready and excited for their arrival. Families are comfortable knowing that information has been shared and that they can focus on just dropping off their children. Hope Haven is also an original partnership. This organization is the most doors open partnership we could ever imagine. They do a huge training option for staff twice a year, and they always invite me. And I feel like these people know way more than I do, but every year I come and provide them with new information, and they are always so happy to be a part of it and to be a partnership with us. And it's reciprocal because I'm really proud to be a partner with them. So our next steps, our growth is strong and our growth is confident. It is a very well supported program, one that we're all really proud of. Our communities are now working on building their own confidence and their own capacity, which is our next step of the program, is that we are providing this as a stepping stone for our students' communities. And we look forward to seeing these communities thrive and fading us out and still providing this to families. We don't feel that growing in numbers is really the next step. I feel like we need to grow in capacity, and our community is certainly a part of that. So that's what I hope our next step is. So, yeah, thank you so much for having me, and if there's any questions.
Thank you so much. I always, I feel like we've been here a long time, many of us around this table, and to learn about this program was really exciting. Are there questions or comments? Yeah.
That watch us grow. I had the opportunity to watch you grow over the last 4 years, and what you do is amazing. But I think what I take out of your presentations when you're at Seattle, it's the friendships that they make. And like you had said about Butters and Holstein, and they wouldn't have met. And I can remember a slide you showed, I think, in the fall, where they were actually thanking you on the screen that they didn't have a friend, and we completely. It's wonderful that you've got all these new opportunities, and that bakery in Fletcherton, that looks so much fun.
So fun.
Thank you for all you do, and Deb is just a breath of fresh air. She's so bubbly, and this is what you see all the time, so we're very happy to have you, and so thank you, and to your team. You're doing what's good.
Thank you so much for your support.
Trustee Leeds?
Thank you so much for sharing this, and for introducing me to some new things and, also showcasing some incredible programs I've learned. I'm just wondering how placement works for students. So are they required to go to the places that are near them geographically, or is transportation provided? Like, I'm just wondering how that works. Thank you.
Thank you. So unfortunately, transportation is not part of the funding. So when the information goes out to families, they have access to basically a menu of all of the programs that we're offering per semester. So there's the fall semester, a spring semester, and our summer program. So families fill out using Microsoft Forms. It's sort of a pre-registration form, and they're able just to select whatever programs they're interested in. And if they check it off, then that becomes something that I can consider them eligible for. And like I said, then we have to sometimes run the lottery, but that we still ensure that as many families as possible can access a space in the program.
Thank you. I just have a additional question that I may have forgot. Might come back to me.
Thank you.
As student trustee Powell and then trustee.
I just want to say thank you for your presentation. It's very clear that you're very passionate about this and that you are doing very great work from the sounds of it. So keep doing that, and I will love to hear how far this program goes. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I have to admit that even though I'm a member of the Special Education Advisory Committee, I really don't understand autism very well. So I'd like you to possibly explain to me what is the spectrum of communications challenges that these kids face. So I know it goes from 1 to 100. And while you're at it, what is the issue with regulation that you're trying to deal with?
So I can just say, part of the diagnostic process for an individual with an autism spectrum disorder is about, there's a social aspect, and there's a communication aspect, and there's a behavioral aspect. So we do often see individuals, autistic individuals struggle with regulation because it is a part of, the emotional aspect and the social aspect. So it is a goal that we focus on for all of our neurodivergent students to work on strategies to build a sense of calm and be able to cope with everyday changes, which is an area that they potentially will struggle with.
So what percentage of these students are virtually nonverbal? And are a lot of them somewhat or significantly verbal, but still not communicating effectively?
So on the whole, 30% of those diagnosed with autism will be non-speaking or nonverbal, as you may refer to it as. Mhm. That doesn't represent our school board, that's just in general.
Trustee Lutz?
Thank you, and thank you for your patience as I understand. So my question is, you mentioned about parents being happy they could drop their children off without having to tell everyone we could explain needs. So I just was looking for clarification. Does that mean that the program bridges that gap so that it's much more like a standard drop off, so to speak? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. That is exactly the strength of the program, is that because I, through parental consent, have access to school information as well as parent information, that every organization or every place that is receiving students for our programs receives training and profile sharing from myself prior to that student starting the program. So they already know about our students' profiles and strategies prior to the first day of them beginning a program.
Wow, thank you so much for doing that, because that takes such a burden off the family. That is huge. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Is there any other questions or comments? Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. I was aware of many of those programs and understand the interconnectedness and what was happening through there. So I really did learn a lot. Thank you. Thank you so much. We have one more report this evening, and that's instruction during inclement weather. And I would like to invite all of our superintendents to speak to this.
Thank you very much. I've been designated as our additional land. Get started. So through the chair, I'm going to just highlight a couple of things from the report. I hope that caught your eye. So normally, on any normal year, we would experience between 10 and 15 inclement weather days where we have buses canceled. In this school year, we had a few schools at 30 and a number of them at 28 and 29. It's unprecedented. We've never seen that before. I have not seen that in 30 years in Bluewater and Bruce County. And I don't believe Oregon, was a few more years than me, has experienced that in Gray County and Bluewater. So we have not seen that. It was a very unusual year. We understand for staff, for students, and for parents. This caused a lot of disruption. We absolutely acknowledge that. There's nothing, I think, that we could have done. We can't control the weather. However, we continued with our elementary schools being open when possible, when it was safe for cars to be traveling on the road, but buses could not manage a lot of the back roads because the traveling is much different for those vehicles. And even on a lot of the days where we were running buses, there were a number of buses that were stuck in ditches and, had slid off, but, students were safe, but again, it caused a lot of disruptions. So classes are combined in those situations because oftentimes we have less than, our 90 to 100% attendance at the schools. So classes end up being combined and you oftentimes will have 2 grades, even 3 or 4 grades all in one classroom. And then the teachers that are able to make it to school safely are then distributed and teach usually their grade, but they might be teaching some other students as well. And we have to focus on main topics and main larger expectations, big expectations and concepts and ideas within the curriculum to make sure that we're getting all of those covered. during the school year. So that's how we handle elementary. I know that we did have some parents call. I know that you received some calls. We received some calls around elementary, wanting to maybe pivot to online. I just want to address at this point, for us to pivot to online learning for elementary, it took us 2 weeks to distribute during the pandemic to redistribute devices for in schools and meet the needs of the students that needed devices, because we don't provide devices to students on a one-to-one basis like we do for our secondary students. So to redistribute those, arrange all of that, it could really only take place when we had a 2-week lead up and a ramp up to be able to do so. To do so on inclement weather days, to have an expectation of online learning would be very unfair for our parents and for our students. It's also, as if anyone worked during pandemic with any young students at home, and I see some parents, some moms and dads in the audience nodding their head, you can't just have them sit down and work for 5 hours on a computer and follow along with the teacher. It usually requires an adult or a grandparent or a parent to be there monitoring them very closely. So it is quite a bit more difficult. So that was just simply not an option for us. We kept our schools open where possible, and then we combined classes. We feel like that is the best way for us moving forward. In terms of secondary, in 23-24, we chose to leverage the devices that we have, the one-to-one devices we have in classes, all of the work that was done in the years leading up to that to enhance online learning. Teachers do a better job at teaching online. They're more comfortable. Students are more comfortable. They have the independence from grades 9 to 12 where they can accomplish and do things online. We pivot on those days. So when buses are not running, and just to paint a picture for you, as a secondary teacher, on a day when buses were not running, you might have anywhere from 10 to 15% of the students in the school, maybe. There were a lot of days where you have no students showing up in a secondary school when buses were not running. So now we have, with a pivot to online learning and classes happening and teaching happening, we're seeing a much higher number. We're not seeing 100%. I'm not going to stand here and say that we've got every single student participating, but a lot of the teachers in the anecdotal survey that we did with our administrators and in staff meetings, we're finding we're having upwards of 60% in a lot of cases, between 40 and 60% in a lot of classes. I see Principal Burns nodding his head. So it really depends on the class, on the students, but we have a much higher percentage of students participating when we've pivoted to online. A number of other boards in the province have actually shifted to this, and they are doing that as well. And because I know I'm going to have the question coming up, I'm just going to field it right now. We cannot do a hybrid version. We cannot run both online. We cannot pivot online and teach in person. It's just not possible. There are both local and central agreements with our unions that prevent us from being able to do so. It's just too difficult. We don't have the technology. It's also a very difficult task to be able to do that with students, both in person and online. So we decided to pivot online. We did that last year. We've done it again this year. Now, with 30 snow days, it certainly created a lot of pushback because people were then saying they're missing too much time. They need to learn new things. They need to be in school. So we did pivot during the year as well to open up and say, you can be in the school if you can make it there safely. Again, that's one of our biggest concerns. If you can make it to the school safely and you'd like to use our internet and, work together with your friends in the cafeteria or the library, you can do so. But again, it will be in an online format because we can't do both. So we had that. And next year we are looking at, and we're talking with STF, our union partners, about on consecutive inclement weather days. So if it's a second snow day, a back-to-back snow day, on the second day, third day, etc., they would introduce new topics. So they would keep moving on, knowing that they would have to catch students up though when they return to in person. So because there will be some students, we have spots in Grey Bruce, believe it or not, if you live in Wyerton, with no internet. Like even with the best, technology, there are some spots that in rural Ontario that do not have great internet service. So I'll have to share that with Mr. Ford. So we know that one we've got, like they need to be able to catch up when they get back. Or if they can safely get into the school and use our internet, that's great. But one of our biggest concerns, again, when it comes to student success and student safety, we're going to side with student safety all the time. And that's what we've done. We've said, if you cannot make it in, that's fine. And once you do come in, then we will catch you up. And we have a number of the students, one of the students today from King Cardinal sharing with me that despite all the snow days, her calculus and vectors class is all done. They've covered all 9 units and they are ready to go for their exam. So our teachers are able to do that. We know that they're amazing. And I think that summarizes most of the report, but we're all up here in case there are any questions. If there are any tough questions, I'll have Superintendent Penderlickson answer them.
Thank you. Oh, this is a question generating topic. Surprisingly. I'm going to start with student trustee Poe.
I will say that, like you said a few times, it was an unprecedented amount of snow days. I've never even dreamed of that many snow days. It was like every morning I would be like, oh, yep, going back to sleep. But I think the shift next year to have it continue on with little bits of work over consecutive days will be very beneficial. We did get to a point where there was only so many work periods we could have before the teachers were kind of like, I don't know what you guys need to be doing. So I think that's a very good step forward, and I do commend you guys for making that choice, because I think it's going to be beneficial if something like this happens within the future years. Praying it doesn't, but yeah, very, very good job.
Trustee Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, I've had lots of phone calls. And one of them, this is just a comment, an observation, is that particularly kids who are in grade 11 and 12, at your age, you should be able to step up to the plate and do the work and not have to have mom and dad sit beside you and encourage you to do it. So maybe we should raise the expectation a little bit. A comment.
I saw lots of hands initially. I know trustee Lutz, but
Thank you. So I just wanna, I have a comment and then a question for clarification, because once upon a time when I was a student, in the dark ages, and it actually was a year before internet, when we had many, many snow days, our teachers assigned us work in case there were snow days. Once upon a time, that was what they did. We got sent home with work. It was put on the board on Monday morning. People here who were in my class that year, I think, remembering that it was just Monday morning, all of our work through the week was on the board, and yeah, we had it in case we had to do it. And so and that was in elementary school, I'm gonna point out when we talk about ages. So I just wanted to ask for clarification about the pivoting to online for secondary. Is it only consolidation and work periods at this point, or are there lessons and work ahead? Thank you.
through the chair of consolidation, work periods, extension, open office hours, for task questions, get clarification, that kind of thing. That's what we have historically have done. So what we're proposing is if we're in this case again with the consecutive inclement weather days, that we would introduce some new learning. There'd still be time for review, of course, asking questions, consolidation, finishing up projects, things like that, but adding the, some new learning into the mix. Sorry. Trustee Atkinson?
I have a question on attendance. So if we had 30 snow days, our secondary students are pivoting to online. How does that work if said student doesn't show? Is that a no, like that's a day, or is that, I don't, could you explain that? And then my second question has to do with elementary. When it's a bus day and the kids can't get to school, mom and dad can't get them there, is that an absent day? Or could you explain to me how that works, please?
Thank you, through the chair. So on those days, when buses are not running, then the students are not counted as being absent. It's marked as a G day for them, that they're not counted as being absent. However, if the student shows up in secondary, then the teacher has the ability to go into Aspen. And then so if I see 6 or 7 students show up in my class and ask me questions, I go in and I change their attendance to present. So, and then obviously for students who do show up to school, whether they ride a bus or not, sorry, I should change that. Students who ride a bus are not indicated as absent because it's a G canceled bus. However, if a student does arrive to school, then obviously they're present. Students who walk should be there. So they're marked absent if they're not there.
Thank you.
Okay.
I just had a little addition. Superintendent Lowers can help with this, but it's interesting. The student achievement plan of the ministry, one of the indicators is student attendance. And they unfortunately, I guess, count snow days in our absenteeism rate on that student achievement plan.
And that's exactly why I had the question, because 2 weeks ago, we had that report and it showed, and I was just a little confused how that worked. So thank you.
Clarification. So I consider absence, there's 2 types of absences. Ministry absences, for those for that purpose, they count it. Everything else, we don't count it. We, like, when we report, like on the report card, things like that. So they're not shown as being absent. So, yeah. But the ministry, for their calculations within their technical paper, they have it written, if they're not there, for whatever reason, then they're marked absent.
So just for clarification, so a secondary student on their OSR wouldn't show 30 absences for their college application. It would just be, so the ministry part shows the 30 absence.
Through the chair. So no, the OCAS and they don't look at absences or anything. They just simply look at grades. So, but you're correct. The ministry, for attendance purposes, when they talk about 90% threshold, they count all absences regardless of the reason why. And but we don't necessarily do that.
Thank you very much.
Trustee Johnson.
Thank you very much for doing this presentation. I think it's important. I know that people in my community had lots of conversations with me. I received a lot of calls, but it was mainly I didn't receive any secondary calls. It was all elementary. So that's, like, so what I'm hearing, I'm really glad to hear that there is going to be a pivot in secondary. It's consecutive days. So I'm going to go to elementary. So the main thing was that from some parents, it was the lack of transportation. They understood that buses couldn't run. I know that this is also not your department, but I'm going to say there's kind of they're all intermingled, and I think that's important. So, some parents had, said, is there any way they could do in-town buses? Because what really goes on for some parents is they have to get to work. They don't have a choice. So they're going, whether they're working at the hospital or the municipal office or downtown in a store or out at Bruce Power, they, they have to go to work. And so I think it was that piece. But it also, the other part that came was that students' attendance. So if they could safely get there, for whatever reason, students didn't attend, and kind of what I heard was because there wasn't any new learning, so why bother them to go to school because there wasn't any new learning. So from these parents' perspective is that there wasn't incentive for kids to attend. And that their concerns, I think, kind of globally from the conversations I had in the winter, was that they're concerned with, because of global warming, that this kind of experience is not going to be an exception. It's going to become the rule. And that we have looked at it from a secondary perspective, but not necessarily an elementary. And maybe there's different things we can do for juniors, but I'm now thinking about that a lot of our secondary or our community schools are 7 to 12. And that it might be, as a board, to look at providing devices for, 7s and 8s like we do for grade 9s to grade 12. And that there be some, different kinds of opportunities, especially if we're going to have consecutive days. And if not, it is to also kind of look at some busing, even though I know I understand how it's all set up, but that's the other piece. And so I just think that the other third piece, there's a third pillar here, is schools and, is working with our parents, because it's also about encouraging their children to go to school. So maybe they don't go because mom and dad left and they could walk to school safely, even though there isn't a bus close enough. So I just think there's some opportunities for us to start looking at down the road, because this might not have been exceptional years, but to become the norm.
Well, please excuse me, yes. I just have one question with respect to the elementary students. Is there a mechanism that keeps track of the concepts that would have been missed for those students? Because they're still in our system in the following year. Do we have a sense of what a teacher in the following grade may need to be aware of, augment, support a student as they're moving along, because they're all on a continuum of their learning?
Through the chair, there's not an official way in which we do that, but in every school that I've worked, the staff always work together to share with each other what has been done in the previous year. So it's always been about, we weren't able to get to some of these smaller expectations, but they always emphasize the larger expectations, the big concepts within math and literacy and other areas. So that is always shared. I've been in some schools where we've actually had folders for each student that the staff did this. They created folders and they passed it along year to year about larger concepts that have been covered and concepts that have been done in each class and each grade. It really varies, but I've never been in a school where they haven't taught in the grade to grade transitions when they're getting students from the previous grade or from the grade below. They're sharing what has been done, what needs to be covered, what needs to be looked at. So, but there's nothing universal across the province. So we have students from another system that came here and they happen to miss a few units. And this happens where students transfer in and maybe they did one strand of math in September, October, they come here in November and then they do it again. They missed another strand because things do happen.
I just want to make one other comment, I think supporting what Trustee Morgan, what Trustee Johnstone. I think there may just need to be a shift in the expectations that we have of our students now that we do have the ability to do online learning and there will be new concepts taught. that the expectation is that they go to school. And it's not the old days where nothing was being taught or you weren't learning, that there's just an expectation that you go. Perhaps we need to look at that with the small ones too, although it's a different situation, but.
And just, sorry, one more thing through the chair, I did find later on in the year as we approached, 25, 26 schools, snow days. I did walk in school where there were a number of students there and classes were just proceeding. Like there were elementary classes where the teacher's saying, I have 20 and 22 students, so we're just preparing them. Which makes absolute sense. So again, that's the teacher's professional judgment in that case. And oftentimes I saw that happening, especially when we had some of those days, which were maybe a little icy on some back roads, but were pretty okay in the main purpose.
Trustee Lutz?
Thank you. I think this could go along with that because again, safety needs to be paramount and knowing many teachers who have spent overnight in schools with students, and that's something we want to avoid, and we don't want accidents or things like that. And I also wonder if beyond the idea of encouraging attendance, again, I'm showing my age and my experiences. I remember when in the winter, half the reason you did a speech in the winter was because you could work on it on a snow day. Like there was a lot of schoolwork that was done specifically in the winter time because it was portable, because you could work on it whether you were in school or at home, and that maybe, and I know this is very individualized, it depends on a lot of things, but just some encouragement for that type of work to be done in the winter because I know personally, I have a walking student that did not attend on snow days. But schoolwork was being completed. We had the privilege of being able to do that, so we made sure something educational was happening, even if a ball was thrown in their general direction. BPA and reading. So, yeah, I just want to say that maybe that's also an option. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We will all keep our fingers crossed that next winter looks different. But I do appreciate this conversation for ourselves and for our ability to share that with families. Thank you very much. We had new business added at the beginning of the agenda, so I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Johnstone.
Thank you very much. So I believe that if, you were reading your board email and you received the notification from Jane that had to do from the Minister of Education to see what was in the new the new EDU changes. So you don't have to establish that at this point as we're going to go online and do a contribution. But I would like to know from our board perspective and trustees is what things you may find concerning that I can bring to the attention of, because I'm going to be carrying a meeting and they're going to be looking for input from the Western region. Yeah, open it up. Go ahead.
I think for me, what I found concerning is I feel like we do many of what is outlined in that legislation is already being done. From the audits that he has discussed about setting the parameters for that, we have professional auditors that follow the standards from our posting of our expenses. We do that. The information about putting, naming schools, taking that away from the local area, it's a job that locally people have, that's important and we've been doing it. And to take away the decision-making in terms of the police, I mean, we welcome the police to have a be part of our communities. But there's, that's been an issue for some boards that they've struggled with and grappled with, and I think they should have the autonomy to make some decisions that suit their own community the best. So it just feels very sweeping. And I think the powers are there for the minister. We've watched it unfold this year when there are concerns to put in an audit to look at what's happening and then if need be to do something further. I think that already exists. So, and there's been no consultation on it.
Trustee Liz.
I'd just like to second what Chair Thompson said about those two issues about main school and the police access in schools. The language in the bill is actually quite harsh about requiring or not allowing. And again, these need to be not just board specific, but sometimes like school specific issues that need to be treated with care as opposed to the kind of blanket situation they're suggesting there.
Thank you. Go ahead, Tracy.
As you, when I first read it, I thought, we do this, we do audit, we do, you have the police community partners. Now, I don't know how each, municipality or town does that with their community, with the police department, but I know in my area, we have great partnerships with the police, and so I, when I first read it, I thought, we're okay, we're doing this, so, but I do see where other boards and policing and audits may not, so I support the other boards, but when I read it, as I said, I appreciate.
Okay. Clear, and it's from our board, but in its legislation, you know, is that if there's a concern in terms of a criminal matter that goes to schools, police have automatic ability to enter schools. So it makes, from the conversation that's happened provincially, it makes it sound like that's not, you know, that's not already, you could say, in legislation. So I think that's really, you know, part of the concern. As for, you know, police programs in schools, I think different communities have different things, but in the community I represent, it comes under a municipal budget. And because of that, they chose not to fund that this year. So we don't actually have any control, so that, you know, so that's why I thought it was interesting when I was reading the information that is said, you know, if they provide it, because I think that our, the area of my board in terms of my municipality, there could be other places like that where it's not funded by the municipality because they provide police services and they chose not to fund that. Even though I'm gonna let you know that in my community, they strongly supported that program. It was very positive. So, you know, so I think, I'm not sure if I'd even want to write about that, but that was really it, where you had a community that, you know, schools and parents who supported, you know, police coming in schools and providing different kinds of, you know, services to the kids. And there was mainly programs, principals would phone them up and say, hey, listen, could you do something on trafficking? I'm just gonna use that as an example. And they would, and it was a great relationship, but the municipality chose they did not want to fund it. Yeah, so just to kind of let you know that that's not consistent across the province, which is why they probably put in there if it was provided, you have to. You know, but what happens if the opposite is if it, you know, okay. Other concerns about the legislation? Mine is, I'm just gonna say, because I don't know what it means, but it's that the flexible legislation authority provide oversight to and including supervision of school boards based on matters of public interest. And I think it's because we don't know what that means, such as governance. Right? So I think that we would like to know what that means, or that they make it up going along. I'm just, there's a lot in those words, public interest. What does that mean, public interest? Yeah. It also can fire trustees. I understand, but just to let you know, the minister said he was gonna make some legislation that he could fire trustees. He or she already has that authority under the Education Act. They can actually, they've never used it. I've never seen any minister of education ever remove a trustee in this province, but actually, they do have the authority. Not sure exactly where he's going with that one. Yeah, and I agree with Jane, like, we already post our expenses online. We have to, I think there's a whole have to already that you have to, post them. So there was a lot of repetition that made it sound like things that were not happening, in boards across the province, but in fact was actually already whether in legislation or regulation. So anyway, those are the ones that I kind of hit on. Is there any other ones like that you can think of that would have an impact in our area in particular?
Yeah, I'm just reading through a little bit of, through Chair. Child Youth and Family Services Act, there's like all these different amendments to 4 or 5 different acts that are already in place. And I'm looking at the one of note is the Children's Aid Society, where they have to, there's some accountability that's built in where they have to actually post a lot there, they have to actually review their bylaws and things like that, and that has to be more available for the public to see. So, yeah, there's just all these little schedules that are involved in all these different acts that this act, I guess, changes or amends a lot of these stipulations that are in these acts as well. Other acts.
My read of it is it impacts all the boards in the province more than anything in particular for Blue Water. It's expectations on all boards. We've been going through legislation to do what we're doing. And so I really look to OPSPA to use their might to speak to this on behalf of all of us, because I think it isn't specific to Blue Water by any stretch. I think we are doing a good job with it. But there are some concerns, obviously, in the scope and breadth of this legislation and what it could mean for us, but there needs to be some consultations.
Go ahead.
Well, it strikes me that this piece of legislation is a bully tactic from province. It is meant to tell the boards that don't hassle us, don't challenge us around funding for the various programs. Basically, they want the boards to cease putting pressure on them. And this is a threat that if the boards don't comply, they're going to see a lot more intervention by the ministry and the minister in particular, and by the government politically. What you can do about that, I don't know. I don't think fiddling with the specifics is the answer here, because it's really a broader threat to the whole issue of what the boards are allowed to do.
So I think what I hear from Jane is that, that maybe every trustee is welcome to go online and make a submission. There's a link there. And I'm also going to suggest to Chair Thompson that that's the consultation piece. I'm sorry, but but that is, and I think that, the concerns for OSPA is, some of the things I just mentioned is that we don't know what something, there's some pretty broad language in the changes that we really don't know what it actually really means. And I think that's, if there's a part of consultation, Jane, is to find out exactly what some of those things actually mean in terms of, actual school boards. I have some of your ideas, that definitely bring forward. And I also, I told Jane that, I look at the education and program workings of OSPA and, so we have different representation, whether on policy or program, and in terms of, our west or region, it would be only Lambton Kent that doesn't have any representation on either, so I'll be reaching out to them. Because, for their input. If you have anything else that you've seen or you kind of hear about, don't hesitate to send me an email with that. I can tell you these emergency meetings of both program and policy are probably not going to happen for like after the AGM. So, so you have lots of time and you'll get more information and then you can, send it to me.
And that's all. Thank you very much. Are there any announcements? Students?
Thank you. I just wanted to quickly share, given the conversation earlier about music programs, I just wanted to share some wonderful things that have happened in my area. So there have been a bunch of music nights, which actually included one school inviting students from another school that weren't able to do their music night to perform with them, which was really special. And that was an extension of the band day that they had done earlier in the year, where schools had gotten together with a lot of musicians from the area. And on display at all these music nights were all the awards that these bands had gotten this year. But also what happened at one of my schools recently was a tribute to a retired music teacher, which was a very well attended, very festive night. And which also included the retired music teacher being conducted in play by her original music teacher. So the legacy of music is strong in so many of our schools, and it stretches far and wide, and you see it. And it's wonderful, and I know our administrators very heavily support it because they go above and beyond to support all these things when there isn't money. I'll say that the joke of the night was that I think if the saxophones keep getting broken at one of the schools, and the amount of fundraising they can do might fix one of them. So they are working very hard to continue these programs, and the love and support that is shown for the teachers and for the students and for everyone who supports them is always wonderful. So I just want to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Yes, Catherine.
Yeah. Just today, I took part in all the arts, so the drama, the music, and the creativity. Spruce Ridge had a play called The Storybook, the Full of Beans, and it was a half-hour presentation of a play, but all the arts were incorporated into this play. And I too, when I get to visit these schools, I see wonderful music programs that we have within our system, and the teachers that we have, very, very lovely. Musically, and you need to come into the school and see for yourself, Trustee Craig, because we do have wonderful programs. And
I don't doubt it.
that's what I have to report.
Trustee Johnston?
So I attended last week the KDSS musical Chicago King Edition in King Cardin. It was held at the King Cardin Arts Center, not at the high school. It was fabulous. Just want to let you know, it was all, it's been sold out. I think there was on 3-4 performances. And it was just, there were obviously parents go, but I also noticed like the night that I went was that there was lots of people just from the community that came out and supported it. And it was really funny. It was musical, but it was also really funny. And the students did a terrific job. And I wanted to say that. On the way to the board office tonight, I talked to student senator. And she was telling me about prom night, which was last week. And just to let you know, that kids stayed later than they had the year before and danced. So I was very happy to hear that. So I was quite shocked the year before where they ate dinner and they all left. Anyway, so she said it was a really, really good time and it was really commented on that kids stayed and they danced and they had a really good time. And so I want to commend KDSS for putting on a great prom.
Quickly, I want to shout out, Osprey, did a little fundraiser, last weekend. Grey Highlands, they had their first annual car show, which was amazing. I stopped by and checked that out. In addition, they had a run for run, which was really, really great. It's great seeing some ex-students there. Of note, shout out to Andrew at Dundalk Pro. They've raised in one initiative $15,000 for their playground on one fundraising initiative. And it's like up over 90,000, I think, left to go. And that's pretty expensive, but and with the track and field that's been happening, I went some track and field at the launch. So everybody's busy winding up and winding down at the same time.
Well said. I just wanted to make sure everybody fills out their the committees, the new standing committees, which is a result of the changes that we're making to our bylaws. I would encourage everyone to do their good governance for all school boards. That's the expectation that's done by the end of August. I have completed most of it. It's honestly not onerous. Now the videos that were live streamed are available. I understand I haven't had an opportunity to look and I still have to do 2 of those, but please complete that. I wanted to let you know it was in your package. We received a formal card and you have an image of it for us doing the presentation for the regional meeting on Saturday. So it goes back a little ways, but thanking us for that and thanking Superintendent Lefebvre. And then we've had several notes, and I will send some of them around to you tomorrow through Crystal. But just cards that have come or letters that we've received from other school boards expressing their condolences as to what has happened. And it is going to only be a small representation because I know our director has received, our superintendents, our principals, our communications officer, people from around the province have been reaching out to express their condolences. This card is from Renfrew County, from the Board of Trustees there. So I just wanted to share. As I say, I will be attaching some of the letters. You'll receive them tomorrow. And you have your calendar of events. And I'm looking for a mover that we adjourn at 8:48 for 3 minutes. And everyone travel safely home.
Actually, you're walking through. Okay. Chris.